Hello and welcome back to another show. Today we are reviewing Everton versus Burnley, and I wish I didn't need to because this was the most horrific game to watch, probably of the entire weekend. And look, I mean, we win 1-0, we take the 3 points, we take the chockies, but I tell you what, it is a bit of a travesty that we won 1-0. The goal came off DCL, and it probably, like, we had no business scoring a goal from that outlet, if you could even call it an outlet. Just a ricochet off the goalkeeper trying to facilitate and distribute the ball into open play. And look, I mean, I did say last game that hopefully that penalty goal scored by DCL was going to be the ripple effect that he needed. I didn't really picture it to happen like this, but once you score one, the gods watch over you a little bit more, little bit more considerably, and they give you sorts of outcomes like that. I think we need to talk about, though, the lack of quality in this game. And look, it felt like both teams didn't really have much interest winning the game. Everton had a number of chances later in the game to put the game to bed. We don't get too many calls going our way in terms of the opposition getting red cards, but it doesn't seem like we ever play with that extra man advantage. It always seems like even though the player comes off, we actually lose a man ourselves. We don't seem to capitalize. I mean, a couple of times Beto was through. There was another time where I think another player was through. I can't remember who it was, but those guys felt like they were running in treacle. And Deitch made changes pretty late on as well. And look, I could have definitely foreseen a goal being conceded purely off the back of our players being tired and being run into the ground. Because sometimes we'd try to counter, but we just didn't have anything left in the tank. But that doesn't really. That's not an excuse for what happened earlier on in the game. I mean, the first half, the delivery was absolutely shocking into the box. I did hear the commentary saying that it was very gusty and swirly around Goodison Park. But, that's only going to make the ball sit up in the air a little bit. Sometimes it may, you may need to overcompensate a little bit for the gust. But at the same time, you should not be skying at 10 meters above your man. And far too often, the distance between the target and where the ball ended up was just ridiculous. The disparity was crazy. So that's a major issue for me. I mean, Ashley Young couldn't even get past the first man half the time with his crosses. And sometimes he was just absolutely not on the same page. And, I was there and then ready to just sign his retirement papers because he desperately, he just needs to take a seat on the bench. Surely Jack Harrison is a better option than what Ashley Young was offering today, even though he did do some nice things here and there. Sparingly isn't enough, especially when you're fighting a relegation battle. You've got to be a little bit better than just having one of those random moments every once in a while and then give up the ball 6 or 7 other times in between. So, yeah, I think he was lacking. I think, we played hoofball too much in this game when, we saw last game the success of Gomez and the success of Garner when you play, play through the defense instead of trying to launch it over the top. Yes, Burnley were playing with a higher line, especially as the game wore on. But at the same time, even though those through balls were happening later in the game, earlier on when we needed to set the tone, there was just far too much hoofball happening and we were just playing into their hands. The ball was going straight to the goalkeeper. It was going out of bounds. Sometimes the set pieces were really lacking as well. I mean, the amount of times we had free kicks and corners and really didn't do nothing with it. Sometimes players weren't reactive on the receiving end, and they didn't really know how to cope with it either. I do think that there was an element of it being difficult to judge the flight of the ball in the air because of the wind. But, the way in which, a lot of our sequences were panning out on the attacking side, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done there because you're not going to win too many games of football looking as, unformidable as, the Everton boys were today. I do have to give some shout outs though, because work rate was like an important thing in this game, especially when you've got like 2 more attacking minded midfielders playing in front of the back 4. And, they needed to cover a lot of space and, they are also a part of those attacking moves. So they've got a lot of ground to cover in terms of getting back after they make the attacking play. James Garner was covering the ground really well, and credit to him because there were times where it looked very, very open, and his sprint effort to get across and close out the man and slow down the Burnley play, I think that was something that I could really admire. Another player who was absolutely running their socks off, and he's known for doing this, is Dwight McNeil. And I mean, his delivery into the box and that distribution wasn't great today, incredibly inconsistent like many others. But his run was like by far the best in the team. And, he was pretty difficult to not notice because the man was like, running his socks off in the 80th minute whilst a lot of other players were out on their feet. There was one play, I think in like the 75th minute, where Dwight McNeil like sprinted from one wing to the other, trying to basically close down every Burnley player that got the ball as they were passing it around the back. In essence, it was a one-man press. I think Burnley ended up getting it to the other end and nearly getting a shot off. But those efforts by Dwight McNeil, I think that is ultimately why Dyche loves him and has him in the team, because he is a proper grafter. And even in the 75th minute, when he's, covering a lot of ground as he's on the wing, he's going into overdrive and going into those higher gears in order to, just tap into that little bit of extra energy that he has over everyone else. I think that's the real difference maker for him, even though the quality on the ball isn't always there. The player of the game is a pretty obvious one, pretty easy to define today, and I think a lot of people will be saying the exact same thing. Jared Branthwaite is, like, by far the best player on the ground today, and, just everything that went his way. I'll just say this time and time again. For his age, the ability to scope out the ground, see where the ball's headed, be able to anticipate that, and the awareness to come across and close that out at basically every opportunity, with minimal failure, is something so admirable, and is why this guy's going to get paid the big bucks, and we're going to play hardball in terms of letting him go, because he is an absolute weapon in the back half. The guy is incredibly difficult to get by. A lot of sliding tackles today. I reckon he saved Jordan Pickford about 3 or 4 times from having to actually, stop a shot on goal, purely because, he was ensuring that final pass was never reached. He was always the last line or a little bit further forward of that, but every single time he never got bypassed. And I think that is the sign of a true defender. Everything that went his way, no nonsense defending, got it clear, ensured that threat was averted, and he's just done that consistently across the course of the season. That is why we've conceded the 4th least goals in the league or whatever it is, because this guy is just a colossus, and if we get rid of him, it is going to be a void that I don't think we're going to be able to recover from because of just how instrumental he really is. So I've got huge props for him, and I've got a lot of admiration for what he's done this season as the season winds down, of course. Do want to go back to the man of the moment, not really, but the guy who scored the goal, DCL. I think he was excellent today. He looks like he has that little bit of confidence in him now, and he was looking to carry the ball further. The skill moves seemed to be executed a little bit more. He was getting into better positions, it felt like. There was one run where he goes from the right wing, ducks inside, and then basically took it himself on the left. He didn't really want any business in passing it off to anyone else. That's the confidence in him now. He saw the opening. He tried to take that opportunity. So I think this is, as I said last time out, this is a great time of the season for DCL to, be finding some form because of these teams that are a little bit weaker in terms of strength. So I think that DCL may have a few extra opportunities with a few more shaky backlines that he's facing. I think there could be a few more goals on offer. And obviously that bodes well for Everton's survival chances, especially when there's a bunch of 6-pointers up for grabs in the closing weeks. So that's going to do it from me. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe. The next game is against Chelsea in about 9 days. So a pretty big break for the Evertonians to, regroup and hopefully iron out a few things that clearly need fixing, because the quality has not been there for a long time. But that is ultimately the thing that's going to get these wins and ensure that we stay clear of the drop zone and and never really, get any closer to it than what we already are. So that's going to do it from me. Have a good one. We'll see you soon. Stay safe, and bye for now.